Hey everyone. So we created this proof of concept issue to verify the idea of being able to support GraphQL, REST, and mock data at the same time for the Corpus management UI. And the reason for this proof of concept is to verify that we could abstract the transport layer and not be tied to the backend implementation, especially since the backend implementation for Corpus management is in a state of flux and has dependencies with the package registry team. So the outcome of this should be a working proof of concept that uses and consumes GraphQL and REST endpoints, and then also allows us to inject mocked out data. And aside from being able to do this, we should be able to easily swap one for the other. So we should be able to build version 1 with mocked out data, so we have something to put in front of customers to test, and then swap that mocked out data for either GraphQL or REST or both. So I'm going to jump right into it. So this is a very basic demo, but I'm going to reload the page here. And there's really not much of a UI. This is just to look at the network request and see if we could do it, and then also look at the code after that. So we'll see over here is the GraphQL endpoint and the data that's returned. So basically we have these packages that belong to a project. In the future, we'd be able to swap that out for corpuses. Whether we call them packages or corpuses is still yet to be determined, or it could be packages with some type of filter to only return packages that are qualified as corpuses. And then we also have this REST endpoint, and this REST endpoint is the equivalent for the GraphQL one, or it gets you the equivalent data, right? You have the project URL, and then you have packages, and that's the documented REST endpoint. And the response you get here, this project has none, so it's still a successful status code, but it's returning an empty array because we don't have any. Same thing with GraphQL. I hit the endpoint, it doesn't fail, it's at 200, but I don't have any valid data at this moment. But the endpoint works. So once we upload a package manually, we'll have that in the nodes array. And then mocked has something here because I've actually hard coded it and mocked it up. So I'm going to go through, I guess, the proof of concept MR very quickly. The idea behind this is that we're using one JavaScript library, one design pattern, and I guess one approach that would allow us to swap out REST for GraphQL and vice versa, and mocked out data. So the part that's relevant is if we go to the GraphQL query, this part over here is the actual GraphQL query for packages. You see project and then packages, and then nodes essentially is going to contain like the fragment that just tells us the value, I guess the properties we want on that object. So corpus state in this case is this fragment. So ID name created at, we'll add whatever we want as needed. So going back to the resolvers, to the query, these two over here, GraphQL Apollo client allows us to inject these, virtual properties that essentially allow us to swap that out for whatever data we want client side. So that's what the @client directive is. So when you define this @client directive, we're able to we're able to define a resolver. A resolver allows us to do whatever we want in it, whether we're doing a REST AJAX request or if we're just mocking out data. So you see that the style, like the pattern, is very similar. We name the name of the field, any parameters related to it, and then this @client directive to distinguish that we want a custom resolver defined. We go over to resolvers, and this is essentially where that logic is happening for, I guess, the queries, right? So here we're doing the actual, what we would traditionally do for a REST AJAX request. And then over here for the mocked version, because it's statically coded, we just return the array that we've hard coded here. And that's pretty much it. So the idea being that if we were going to swap out GraphQL for REST, for example, all we would have to do here, and these are all equivalent essentially. So if we were going to swap out project packages, you'd be able to swap this line out, take the content out of here, and then do @client, and then we would just define the custom resolver. So it would show up as query, I guess packages, and then whatever REST request we need for that. And if we were going in the opposite direction from REST to GraphQL, we take out this resolver, and then we'd go back to the query, and we would take out @client, and then we would just define the remainder of the fields that we want in that request as just standard GraphQL. Same thing for the mock packages. We'd remove @client. If we're going from mock packages to real data, we remove @client, and then you would be able to fill in here whatever fields we need for the GraphQL query. And if we were going from mock packages to REST, this would stay the same. We might want to rename this, but this would stay the same. And then in the resolver, we'd swap out this mock data for something like this, where we're making an API call. And that's pretty much it. And I will, I guess, go over here and show that this is the actual data that's getting spit out from the actual two network requests and then the mock data. So if I set a breakpoint real quickly, I'll show you what that looks like from the front end view side of things. This is going to be not defined the first go around because this is the initial load, and then the request fire off. That's normal for Vue, but you see here now that we've actually made the request, you're able to see what's in packages. So this is where it kind of like we're able to kind of coerce the data into what we need. So packages in this case is just empty, is an empty array because we don't have anything in there yet. And then this is also an empty array because we don't have anything from GraphQL or REST. Even though it's hitting in the backend like the same database queries, it's two different endpoints, but that is expected. So whatever packages we get here and here would be identical if I had actual data in there. And then the mock data, it's just going to be set to an array of 2 items which we had defined in the resolver. And that's pretty much it. So this should give us the foundation to build out the Corpus management screen as designed in the mocks with mocked out data behind the feature flag, and then we'll swap out mock data for real endpoints as they become available.